Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I know it's been a while since I posted anything on here or on my blog, so I just thought that I would update you on what's going on. So just sit back and enjoy, I guess. So a few weeks ago my darling got sick, and it wasn't anything too serious. He just kind of had a headache and he was feeling really groggy and just exhausted. He does work 2 full-time jobs, so I assumed that's what it was. So I told him, just call into work for a few days, just relax. I was thinking he was gonna call in for like 1 day, 2 days, and that'd be it. But 4 days later, he was still calling into work. He started vomiting. He couldn't really eat or drink anything because he would start vomiting it back up. He was having stomach cramps, and he was also having blurry vision, which was really scary. I decided the next day, since I was off and he was obviously not going into work, that I was just going to take him to the emergency clinic in my small town. It's a small town, but we actually have a Memorial Hermann emergency clinic, so I thought this will be great. So we took him there. They asked him his symptoms. They were looking at him, checking his eyes and everything, and once he started telling them his symptoms, that he was having blurry vision, that he was having these headaches, he was vomiting, stomach cramps, he couldn't eat or drink anything, that it was just getting progressively worse, they told us, you need to take him to the emergency room right away, because he could be having an aneurysm, he could be having a bleed on his brain. Like, there's a lot of stuff that be going on, and this is just no joke. Like, we can't even see him because it's that intense. I was freaking the fuck out. I took him to the emergency clinic thinking they were going to tell me he had migraines, because I've thought for a while that he has them, but he just doesn't understand what they are because there's no sign for migraine. But here they are telling us that he could be potentially dying, and we have to rush him to the ER. The good thing was they told us, they gave us an address and a little map showing us where to go to this special ER that they said was not actually connected to a hospital, so they would see us right away. So we went to that ER. It was really scary. I had to drive us on the freeway, which I don't know how to do, but I put it in my phone and the GPS took us there. When we got there, I started freaking out because I had forgot that they are currently not allowing any visitors or any extra people into hospitals right now. I was like, are they gonna let me in? Is he gonna have to go by himself? Like, what's going on? At the emergency clinic, they have this little video translator. It's like a machine, which is basically just like a FaceTime. They roll it in and they can pick any language. The only thing that really sucked about that is that because he is from Pakistan, he has a bit of an accent when he talks, and the interpreter was having a hard time understanding what he was saying. She was misinterpreting things. Like, he said, they asked him, like, what's wrong? He said, like, I've got blurry vision, but she said, my eyes are wandering. And I said, that's not even what he said. He said his eyes are blurry. And there was a lot of that shit where they were just not understanding what he was saying. Instead of the interpreter just saying, I don't understand him, she was just, I guess, filling in the blanks and filling them in incorrectly. So that was really stressful. But then when we got to the ER, they didn't have one of those machines. So I was like, what are we gonna do? Like, this is really stressful. If they don't let me in, I don't know how he's gonna talk to them. But Alhamdulillah, they let us in. Obviously, they let us both in. We got in, and it was really nice. Each person was in their own little private room that was shut off from everywhere else by this glass door, and it also had a curtain, so that was nice for like privacy. So they put us in there, and right away they were asking him questions, like, are you experiencing shortness of breath? Do you have a fever? This. They figured out, which we already knew, that the vomiting had started 3 days after he had the headache, which he still had. This was like day 4, and he still had this headache. And so they said, okay, like, I'm pretty sure it's not COVID-19 because you didn't actually have this. You developed this after you had this headache. So you should be fine. We're gonna check everything out. I told them that I thought he had a migraine. So they checked his blood pressure and it was 156, which is really, really high. And it set the alarm off on the little machine. He was like connected to all these wires, and one of the wires was connected to a machine, and the machine started going off when they took his blood pressure. And every few minutes it would take it, and it just kept rising and rising and rising. And the alarm kept going off, and I was really worried because they never did anything. They said that they needed to do blood work, MRI, and a CAT scan. Because they were worried, like the emergency clinic doctors, they were worried they had an aneurysm, a hemorrhage, a bleed on the brain, or possibly a tumor that was growing on his brain. They couldn't do that right away. I'm not really sure why. I think they were trying to get his blood pressure down. They gave him a IV bag, a whole IV bag, and they put some stuff in it that they called a migraine cocktail, and they gave it to him. They said normally it hits pretty quick, so it should have been fine, but we were in there for about 2 hours. It didn't hit, so his blood pressure just kept rising until it was 197. The alarm is just screeching non-stop the whole time we're there, and it just kept rising. At 197, I just said, this is like unacceptable. How can you not do anything? This is dangerous. One of my friends works as a nurse, and so I had texted her, asked her. She said it was a little high, but normally when you're in the hospital, the stress and the new environment and everything can make it go high. But she said if the doctors weren't worried, I shouldn't be worried. But how can I not be fucking worried? It's 197. That's really high. That's like in stroke territory. It just was too high for me. I kept telling them, you know, his blood pressure is getting worse. He's groaning. He's complaining that he's in pain. You know, can't you do something for it? He's in pain. It's been 2 hours. They just kept saying to wait, the IV would hit, and then he would be fine. But once it got up to 197, I left our little room because he was really in pain. He was groaning really loud. He kept saying like, the pain, make it stop. I'm in so much pain. Please make it stop. So I told him, I'm not going to wait anymore. Like, I'm going to go talk to someone. I went to where the nurse's station was, and I saw the nurses that have been helping us. I don't know who they talked to, if it was like the head nurse or if it's the doctor. But when I opened my mouth, one of them told this lady, she's here with her fiance, he's deaf, and he's having very bad migraine pain. We gave him an IV, and he keeps saying that he's in pain. Can we give him something for it? I told this person, look, my fiance's been in this ER for 2 hours. We came in here, his blood pressure is 165. It is now 197. The alarm has been screaming for the whole 2 hours. My fiance is laying in that bed, just moaning and close to tears. He's in so much pain. He's begging me to do something for this pain. You know, this is not okay. You need to do something. And whoever this person was immediately was like, oh my gosh, like, you need to give him something right now. This is really dangerous, and it's unacceptable that he's been suffering for 2 hours. I went back to our room. He was still groaning, still really, really in pain. Finally, the nurse came and she gave him morphine. He was in so much pain that the morphine didn't immediately help him. It took him another 10 minutes. And then once the morphine hit, his blood pressure started going down and he felt a lot better. Unfortunately, because they gave him the morphine and the morphine helped his migraine, the IV bag hit a little after they gave him the morphine. So he was basically high the rest of the time he was in the hospital. I know that I shouldn't have laughed, but I did a little. I think it was just the stress. We'd been in the ER for 2 hours. I had to drive us to this ER on the freeway, basically around like that hour when everyone's going to lunch, so there's so much traffic. It was so scary for me. And then I've been sat here in this ER while my fiance is groaning and he's suffering and he's begging me to do something, and the nurses didn't do anything. Once the IV and the morphine hit and he felt better, he was all right. They did all these tests. They said that everything came back normal, everything came back fine. They had to take him to the CAT scan and then MRI. I thought, like, sure, no problem. I've done it before where he got, I think an MRI. He had an accident last year at work. They sent us to do an MRI, and they actually let me go back there with him. I just had to stand behind the glass when they were doing it. So I figured that's what they do. They led me to believe that this is what was going to happen. So I got him, you know, ready. I put him in this wheelchair because he obviously couldn't walk. And it was really upsetting. Like, even when I think about it now, I get upset, I get emotional. I was going to wheel him into the MRI room when this nurse came and she took the wheelchair from me. Getting, like, emotional thinking about it. But she told me, we didn't want to tell you because we didn't want you to get upset. But you can't go, you have to stay here. I was really upset. I think it was just the nerves and the stress, and suddenly I'm being separated. It took a really long time. They told me it was only going to be 10 minutes. It was actually close to half an hour. And I was really starting to freak out. Like, I didn't understand what was going on. Why was it taking so long? When they finally brought him back, I helped him get into the bed and everything. I actually asked him what happened. Why was it so long? You were only supposed to be gone for 10 minutes. He told me that it took a really long time because he had no communication. He didn't understand what they wanted him to do. I don't know if it was because he forgot how to take an MRI or because he was high on morphine and whatever was in that IV drip. But he had no idea what they were saying to him. They just kept speaking to him. He was like, I'm deaf, so I don't know what the fuck this is gonna do. And he was trying to tell them, like, I want my fiance. They didn't do that. So eventually, once they finally got the MRI, they brought him back. He was very upset, he was very frustrated, and he was saying, I don't understand why they couldn't just let you come with me. You've done it before, why couldn't you do it this time? And I just told him I don't know. So once the MRI came back, they said everything was fine. He wasn't having an aneurysm, a hemorrhage, no tumor, and no bleeding on the brain. They said that it was a migraine, but because he had had a migraine for like 48 hours, it had stressed his body out to the point where basically every 24 hours more symptoms would pop up, which was true once they said it. Every 24 hours he was having more symptoms, and that 48-hour period was when he started vomiting and having the eye pain. So they said that he had to be off work for the rest of the week and that he had to be on bed rest. They actually told us no stress, no exertion, he has to just not do anything. I took us back, but unfortunately we'd been in this ER for about 5 to 6 hours. So by the time we got out, it was rush hour, and for some reason my wonderful fiance, in his morphine induced state, decided he wanted to control the GPS. So he did that, and he would do things like he was sat in the passenger seat, kind of slumped, and he would do things like going, hey, you were supposed to turn left like 15 minutes ago. Or, hey, you're supposed to turn right now, even though I know I didn't tell you, so you're in the middle lane. Stuff like that, and it was making me really fucking stressed. So by the time we got to work, because we had to turn in all the paperwork, tell them that he couldn't go to work for the rest of the week, and I also was not going to work, because of course I'm fucking not. He has to be on bed rest, someone has to take care of him. I was just so frustrated, I was so exhausted. All I wanted to do was just go to sleep. I take him into the store, and he was just acting really crazy. We went to the pharmacy, we dropped his prescriptions off. The doctor had said he needed a blood pressure machine, which for some reason he didn't have. So I went to get him one, and he just kept trying to give it to people. It was really fucking annoying. Like, literally, we went to the pharmacy to turn in the prescription, and he went like, and I said, no, we're not buying this here. We're dropping off the prescription. He said, oh, okay. I want to buy this. I said, no, I've told you when it's ready, we'll go do it, okay? Then we were walking to the back to go which personnel was, and he saw someone and was like, I want to buy this. And I said, that's a stalker. There's no register. We'll buy this when we pick up your prescription. We got to electronics, and you can guess what he did. I want to buy this. I was getting a little frustrated, I'm not even gonna lie, and I told him, stop it. This is not funny. Give it to one more person. I've had it up to here. We will buy this when we buy our medicine. We've got to do this first with your paperwork, because you can't go back to work. So we got to personnel. There was nobody there, because of course not. It was really fucking late. We were calling the operator on my phone, asking her to please page someone because we needed to talk to them. We waited about 15 minutes, and the whole time he was just slumped in his chair. He was just kind of out of it, which I can understand. I'm sure he was really exhausted, plus the morphine, and also plus whatever painkillers was in that migraine cocktail. Finally, some management came, and we were explaining everything that was going on. Of course, when I said he'd been vomiting, they were freaking out, but I said, no. It was the migraine. After about 48 hours in, he got that. So they calmed down. They said, it's fine, you know, we don't really need the paperwork right now. You kind of have to talk to the personnel lady. So bring it back tomorrow and see, you know, because we don't want to take it. We don't need it, but we don't want to take it and then we misplace it. So I said, okay. But he couldn't comprehend this. He kept trying to give them paperwork and they kept saying, we don't want it. So he's just like a 6-foot tall man that's high on morphine with a, you know, blood pressure machine in one hand under his arm, and then he's got all this paperwork, and he keeps like basically yelling while giving it to them, and they said we don't want it, and then he was like, and I told him stop it. You know, I told them I'm so sorry. They gave him morphine. They've also given him other painkillers, and I don't know what's going on. I think he's high. I'm so sorry. Luckily, they thought it was really funny, so they just said, ha ha ha, it's all fine. We went back up to the pharmacy. Finally, the medicine was ready, and finally he gave it to this lady and said, I want to buy this, and she said, no problem. So once that was over, we bought the blood pressure machine, bought the prescriptions. I got us something to eat because we were both just knackered, like we couldn't even do anything. And then we went home. Now, because of everything that went on, everything that happened, I had to take care of him. So I went over to his place. I took care of him for about a week and a half. At the same time, I had returned back to work in about 3 days. And so I was juggling taking care of him, doing the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry, working full time, and I ended up going to work one day and I had a fever, and they told me, obviously, you can't go to work, you've got to go get checked out. I didn't understand what the fuck was going on. You know, I hadn't been anywhere. When we went to the ER, we were isolated. It was really confusing. I did get a COVID test and I'm negative, so I was like, what's going on? My doctor basically told me, I think you're suffering from exhaustion. You've been doing a lot, you know, the past few weeks. You've been taking care of 2 households, taking care of your elderly parents, your grandfather, who is almost 100, so I was really stressed about that. Plus, you know, it's just really stressful, you know, you're probably not sleeping and eating right, you're not resting. Every day that I was off, I was taking him to see a doctor, taking him to see a specialist, so it was really exhausting. And so they said, he's going to be fine. And realistically, you can't protect someone from every kind of stress unless he's in a bubble, which he's not. He'll be fine. I went on bed rest for about a week and a half, and I got a lot better. I didn't realize just how worn out I was. So once that was over, about a week ago, I've come back to work and I feel really good. I'm not sure how often I'm going to be uploading videos to YouTube, just because it's a lot of work. I do edit videos. I have about 5 that are uploaded that I haven't published, just because I try to caption them before I make them public. So that's why it does take a while. YouTube's captioning It's just a mess. It takes about 3 hours to capture one video. So I will try to update, if not here, then on my blog, which I will put a link down below. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.